What's going on YouTube? It is Team Gradelog here. I'm your host Henrico, and I have to say to all my wonderful, beautiful faces out there, this is just miss you, love you, love you. Welcome back to our channel. Today we have a Transformers TCG deck profile of Anti-Nemesis. Now I've been playtesting this a lot. I've been playtesting, having a lot of games, and so far I think this is my final build. I might change maybe one or two cards later on, but that depends on how the meta kind of flows. But this deck, I've been talking with Mama John. Mama John has been telling me about Nemesis Prime, how good he is in the late game. So we've been talking about Nemesis Prime with Acid Storm. So the main point of this deck is to slow down my opponent enough for Nemesis Prime to be a 13k attacker or a 16k attacker, and then finish off my opponent as quickly as possible with Nemesis Prime. So Flame War is just to make it more defensive, to make sure my characters last longer. Acid Storm is to stop my opponent from using Bold, using Supercharge or Dino Chomp, stuff like that. And then Nemesis Prime is basically the big beat stick, the big Unga Bunga, I hit you with a big stick. So again, the main point of this deck is like anti my opponent. If my opponent is playing heavy orange or heavy bold, this deck is basically the anti of it. So let's get on the deck profile, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. So please remember to comment, like, and subscribe, and let's get this deck profile started. First character card that we're going to talk about is Flame War. Of course, on this side, we never want to be on this side. This side we want to be on at all times. Of course, if you guys don't know, Flame War basically is a defensive character. It gives all my characters tough 1, which is broken. It's a 5-star cost for a character. Keep that in mind. Flame War is a 5 cost, and it gives all my characters tough 1. So that's already broken. Unfortunately, Flame War has very low stats. But to be honest, in this build, we do not care if Flame War dies. We don't care if Flame War dies first, because the main point is to actually keep Nemesis Prime alive as much as possible. Next is Acid Storm. Of course, a lot of people has seen Acid Storm come in Rise of Combiners, and a lot of people are questioning Acid Storm because Acid Storm has no defense on both sides. So this side, when you flip into this side, I check my opponent's graveyard. For every double orange pip that they have in the graveyard, he heals 1 off of him. 3 attack, 10 health, 0 defense, of course. But on the other side, this is the side that you mainly want to stay on, unless you want to flip to this side to heal some damage. But this side you mainly want to stay on if your opponent is playing, of course, heavy bold decks. So, of course, on this side, my opponent can't use any bold at all, which is broken, which is the main reason why we're actually playing him. And, of course, he has 2 attack, which is really bad, by the way. But overall, Acid Storm is just here to make sure that to lock down my opponent, to slow down my opponent enough for our Nemesis Prime to actually go in for the kill. Last but not least, of course, Nemesis Prime, the big MVP of the deck. If you guys don't know, he basically is 12 stars. So if you guys count that in total, it's 23 stars for the character cards. So I'll definitely play 2 extra stars in the deck. But Nemesis Prime, he's 6, of course, 6 attack, 2 defense, 16 health. 16 health is a big difference. A lot of people underestimate how much health Nemesis Prime actually has. So when I flip onto this side, I can deal 2 damage to my opponent, but of course he chooses, which is not that bad. Again, dealing 2 damage to my opponent is still broken, especially in the main phase. But this is the side that you mainly want to be on, just for the fact that whenever I reshuffle my deck, I put the bottom card underneath him, and he gains +3 attack. So basically, again, the whole point of the deck is to make sure Nemesis Prime lives long enough to keep attacking my opponent, dealing with 10 attack, 13 attack, or 16 attack. God forbid 19 attack. But overall, the main point is to build up Nemesis Prime so much that he's a one-shot kill character of the deck. Of course, we're going to start with the upgrades. We played 3 handheld blasters because, again, this is the heavy blue deck that we have to play. So we have to play this 3 copies of this card. We played 3 reinforced plating. Of course, this card is the staple in every blue deck, just for the fact that it gives my characters tough 2. Now, we played 3 spare parts. This is a new card from Rise of Combiners. What this card basically does is whenever my opponent tries to activate an effect that destroys one of my upgrades, I can choose this one to go instead. Now, the broken part of this card is that it has a green pip. Of course, with the green pip, I can search for it whenever I drive check it, whenever I check it while attacking or defending. And if I flip a spare parts, I'm like broken. I can discard a useless card from my hand, get spare parts to set up my Nemesis Prime or my Flame War or Acid Storm. So spare parts is basically a security blanket. It's to make sure that even if my opponent does have ramming speed, smelt, well, not smelt, has vaporize or Bastion Shield, Of course, I'm going to go for my armor, and of course, if I have this equipped with my armor, I always make sure to, of course, destroy spare parts before my armor goes. So this card basically just protects my armor, make sure that my character does not get one-shot killed that turn. Spare parts overall is one of the best cards. One of the best cards that I'm pretty sure almost every heavy blue deck should play, especially if you're relying on armor to keep you in the game. Next, we play 3 Scoundrel Blasters. Of course, this card is pure Decepticons. If I put on Decepticon and if it battles an Autobot, it gets 2 Pierce, which is pretty broken. But overall, it's just there for the +2 attack, and it's a green pip, so it's really easy to search for it. Most of the time, I put it on Flame War to get Flame War 5 attack, or if I put it on Nemesis, he's a 9k attacker. And of course, you play 3 Energon Axe. It's basically a staple in every blue deck. If you guys don't know, it gives my character +3 and Pierce 2, but unfortunately I have to put it on a character that does have damage, which isn't that hard because of course I'm pretty sure eventually one of my characters will get 1 damage or 2 damages. So of course drawing into Energon Axe isn't that easy, but whenever I have it on a good character, like as for instance Nemesis Prime is attacking again with 10, 13 attack, 16 attack. Energon Axe with Nemesis Prime is just very scary. Now for the 2 extra stars in the deck, we play 2 Energized Field. What this card does is basically whenever I'm defending and if I flip an orange pip, I can deal 1 damage to the attacker. So potentially I can deal damage to my opponent when they're attacking my unit. It gives my upgraded character +1 defense, but we mainly play it just for the fact that it's a double blue pip. Sometimes I do equip it if I have no other better armor to put, but usually it does come in clutch. Just for the fact that I do play 5 oranges in this deck, so at times I do deal damage to my opponent. We play 1 Sparring Gear. Basically, it's a reinforced plating, but it's an orange and green pip, and it's really easy to search for it. Just for the fact that if I check it attacking or defending, I can just add it to my hand easily. Next, we play Bastion Shield. This is our other orange green pip of the deck. Bastion Shield, what it does is basically whenever I play it, I can destroy one of my opponent's armor. And it gives my characters +1 defense. Mainly for the fact that we play it just because it gives my character +1 defense, but we also play it because it's a vaporized installed armor. So it's easy to search out for it. And in all honesty, I think Bastion Shield is one of the best cards in Rise of the Combiners. Bastion Shield is just overall a really good card to play. Taking out my opponent's armor just in case my opponent's playing Force Field. If they have their own Bastion Shield, it just helps me control the field a little bit more, and also giving my characters +1 defense. Last upgrade, we play Security Console. What this card does is whenever the upgraded character defends, I can draw a card and then plan one. I don't have to plan one. I may put 1 card from my hand to the top of the deck. So basically, it's a data pad. It just lets me draw a card, and I can potentially stack a double blue pip on top of my deck or a white pip on top of my deck. So Security Console does come in clutch. Again, I'm playing 4 utilities. It's just in case if I don't see my spare parts. If I do see this card first before my spare parts, I usually play it, and at times I usually get rid of it for spare parts. But overall, drawing into Security Checkpoint early game is actually super clutch. Now for actions, we play 3 Security Checkpoint. Of course, this card is our other double blue card. Usually we do not play it, just for the fact that in this build we play a lot of upgrades. So usually in my hands I do have like probably 2 or 3 upgrades in my hand, and if I have Security Checkpoint in my hand, I'm like, oh, it's dead. I can't really play it. But again, we mainly play it just for the fact that it is a double blue pip card. Next, we play 3 Swindles. Of course, if you guys don't know, what this card does is I draw 2 cards and then discard 2 cards. If I started out the game with Decepticons only, I can play another upgrade that turn. So the main point of this card is to, of course, go through my deck as fast as possible to make sure Nemesis Prime effect goes off. But we mainly play it to beef up my characters, to set up my characters for defending wise. So basically, if say for instance, if I'm playing if it's my turn, let's say for instance I play spare parts on Nemesis. And then I play this, and God forbid if I actually draw into an armor, reinforced plating, I can put it up on Nemesis that turn. So in one turn, it helps me set up my Nemesis Prime to live out for the next few turns, or possibly put on Flame War or Acid Storm. So Swindle pretty much is a great card overall if you're playing a heavy upgrade deck. Overall, I think it's a great card for armor, basically. Next, we played 3 Leap in the Battle. Of course, this card, it makes my characters beefy. Well, we mainly play it on Nemesis Prime to make him a 10k, 13k attacker, but we do play it on Flame War to make it a 6k attacker, or God forbid, we play it on Acid Storm to make him a 5k attacker. Usually my small units don't really put damage. They might put like 1 or 2 damages, but leaving the battle always comes in clutch, especially with Nemesis Prime. Next, we played 3 The Bigger They Are. Of course, this card is mainly meant for Flame War and Acid Storm. It gives my unit +2 attack, and of course, if they're battling a character that has more stars in it, it gets Pierce 4. So the Pierce 4 is the main reason why we play it, because Flame War has 5 stars and Acid Storm has 6 stars. So of course those characters are always going to face against other characters that have more stars, than it. So the bigger they are comes in super clutch. It makes sure that my little units can actually deal damage that turn. Next, we played 3 Equipment Enthusiasts. What this card does is I draw a card for every upgrade that I have in my field. Basically, since we're playing a heavy upgraded deck, since we play multiple upgrades in one turn, we can play this card. This card may allow us to draw 2 cards, 3 cards, or God forbid 4 cards in one turn. Usually it's a great card mid-game, early game, just for the fact that I might draw 2 cards and it may help me draw into The Bigger They Are. It may help me draw into Energon-X. Of course, Energon-X is the main weapon that we want to draw into. So Equipment Enthusiast is definitely a staple in this deck. Play 2 Vaporize, mainly for the fact that we already have Bastion Shield. Bastion Shield just takes care of my opponent's armor. Vaporize helps me control the field as much as possible. God forbid my opponent has a Matrix of Leadership and I definitely want to get rid of it. Usually I do want to get rid of Matrix of Leadership. Usually they don't really have any other upgrade that I want to get rid of. So Vaporize, they usually keep 1 in hand just in case at all times. Next, we play 2 Swap Missions. This card is amazing just for the fact that we want to attack with Nemesis Prime as much as possible. Now, this card isn't that great early game, but it's amazing late game and mid game just for the fact that if we beef up Nemesis Prime to 10 attack or 13 attack, we can attack with Nemesis Prime 1 turn, pass, my turn again, I play Swap Missions, I restand Nemesis Prime, and then attack with Nemesis Prime again for 13 attack. So Swap Missions does come in super clutch just for the fact that Flame War and Acid Storm have very low attack. So Swap Missions just helps me make sure that I can one-shot kill one of the characters next turn with Nemesis Prime. And last card we play is Underhanded Tactics. What this card does is when I can deal 1 damage to one of my opponents, and if it's KO'd, and I can repair 1 damage from one of my Decepticons. Now this card actually works for me a lot, just for the fact that late game wise, when I play this card, it literally helps me KO one of my opponent's character, and then I can repair 1 damage from my Nemesis Prime. I want to play 2, but I don't have the space for it. I want to keep my deck up to 40 cards. I don't want to play more than 40 cards because then I won't draw into my key cards. Overall, I do want to play 2 Underhanded Tactics. I think it's a great card for Decepticons, especially in a very blue heavy deck. But heavy Underhanded Tactics is just that good of a card, dealing 1 damage and potentially healing 1 damage from my Nemesis Prime. Overall, this deck is pretty fun just for the fact that, again, I love playing heavy blue decks. I love playing control decks a little bit more than aggro decks. But the Acid Storm is just great overall. Pretty much gives me a great matchup against Dinobots, against Metroplex, or any other deck that relies on Bold. Flame War, of course, it just helps my characters last longer, and Nemesis Prime is the one-shot kill character. Again, we play 40 cards, 28 blues, 5 oranges, 7 white, and 8 double blues. We play 20 upgrades and 20 actions. Overall, again, this deck is pretty fun. Again, it's anti-meta, it's anti-bold, anti-orange as much as possible. Maybe later on when we get more support in